Gratitude and Anthology is out.
With over 50 different perspectives and stories on gratitude, this book captures what most books don't. The secret sauce is in the number of voices and stories where you'll be sure to find a personal connection to so many as I did. A really excellent book, David Freeman. Found exclusively on Amazon.com.
Hi, and welcome to Gratitude Space Radio. I'm your host, the Gratitude Junkie, Chris Palmore, and I'm super excited and grateful to be talking today with Anne Heche. Anne is an Emmy Award-winning actress, director, screenwriter, and most recently, podcaster. I had the privilege to hear her share on the Adam Carolla show a few weeks back. She was so open, vibrant, and grateful to hear where she had came from, where she had been, and where and what she is doing now. And a single word was inspiring. I really wanted to talk with her, and after hearing the podcast, I reached out to her friend and the co-host of her podcast, Better Together, Heather Duffy. Heather responded and set this whole thing up. So before I welcome Anne in, I want to personally thank Heather for making this happen. I really appreciate you responding to my emails, checking to see if she's okay doing it, and scheduling and, again, making this all happen. Even to a couple minutes ago, texting me, letting me know that she's running a few minutes behind. So you're awesome. So without further ado, welcome, Anne. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm terrific. Thank you. And Heather says thank you. We're happy to be here.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks for being here. I really, hearing your story a couple weeks ago, I was just listening to it and I was like, it really resonated with me. I could feel that you're someone who had lived and had decided to you said live. I remember hearing you say live your truth. And also finding the gratitude in the situations and becoming realizing you're who you are because of all you've gone through.
Well, I don't think we can help it. I think when we have our story, and if we want to live, for ourselves, I think we have an opportunity to make choices in this life. I call it our biggest superpower, and I'm lucky that my choices have landed me in a place where I feel and can give love in my life. And I'm grateful to be on a gratitude podcast because that's what I celebrate.
Beautiful. I love you being here, and I celebrate it too. And I love that it's just having a choice on how we making a decision when the situation is a superpower. Just like I feel like gratitude is a superpower. We get to decide what it all means to us. We get to decide if we want to find the gift in a situation.
Absolutely.
We get to there's a simple, there's a couple of different simple stories. But one is you go to the beach, it's a beautiful day, and two people have exact different experiences. It could be a beautiful day, the surf, the air's coming in, the sun's out. One person's just loving every moment of it, right? They're soaking up. The other person's like, it's hot. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like people.
It's true. We always have a choice to see what's in a situation. It's also the reason why we can't really judge anyone. You're going through a situation. You don't know what that person has gone through before they made it to the beach, So that's where living in loving kindness comes in, because we all have to give everybody a chance to have their own experience and their own feelings. If we can give them a little bit of help with a smile, then we got to do that. For
sure. When you show up with that type of heart, you're opening up pathways for people and energy that allows. To me, what I consider catalyzing gratitude is the highest form of a gratitude practice, and that's when you show up with that attitude, you're literally creating the space for that to occur.
How did that philosophy happen for you?
Well, that's a great question. And, I want to share a little love for Adam Carolla. So basically back in 2013, so this is coming full circle, right? And I love to think of pre-gratitude, but you asked a very direct question. So I'm going to do the best to not soak up too much of our time with it. Because I totally want to talk to you about you. So back in the fall of 2013, I was listening to the Adam Carolla show, and he mentioned how he never celebrated his birthday. And he mentioned that birthdays were like appreciation trophies. And what he said, which really resonated, he said, if you're going to celebrate your birthday, you should make it about something else or make it about someone else. And it just clicked with me because my birthday was coming up, and I decided on December 30th, I got up earlier in the morning and I wrote essentially a gratitude letter to my mother. I put it on Facebook and because I wanted her to find it. I wanted it to be public, and I wanted to surprise her with it. So because of his action, that put this idea in my head. And, I put the letter out, and I went about my morning, and normally I would get a call from my parents singing happy birthday to me. I didn't get a call. I waited a little bit longer. Yeah, right. I waited a little bit longer. And, I called my dad's cell phone number because I still didn't want to talk to my mom unless she hadn't read it yet. And he got on the phone wishing me happy birthday. And I immediately asked him, I said, "What, mom read the letter?" And he said that she had, and that she couldn't talk, that she couldn't talk to me. She needed time with it, which, would make sense if that answer to, if would make sense if I was like an estranged son. But, at a very early age, I had no problem telling my mom I loved her, kissing her in public. I'm sure I talked to her the day before. So this letter, had done something that I could never have planned to do. And, we met later that day, and it basically encapsulated a moment and a memory, right? Because I decided to share gratitude for her in that way.
And how did she respond when you saw her?
She was really emotional. We had, I just remember that there was just feelings there that, I felt like she was proud of me, like that I could open up my heart like that. And then that I felt that way because she had raised me that way, So, that was December 30th. And I didn't know at the time that my mom's cancer was going to come back, and that, 3 months to the day later, she would pass away in hospice care.
Oh my goodness. Oh my golly. I'm so sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, it was rough. It was a rough time. And, but these, I like to talk about people's, like, gratitude stacking is what I call it. So the amazing thing is when you put gratitude out in the world, it's always stacking. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. But for example, when we put things out in public, like say that letter I wrote my mom, my dad read it, my sister read it, her friends read it, right? And then when my dad asked me if I wanted to talk at her funeral, I had no desire to get up in front of people and have an emotional break or anything. So, but I kept thinking about the letter, thinking about how the letter had done something that had never happened before. You're talking about 35 years, how could you shock somebody, right? How could you say something to take a pause? And I had my cousin read the letter at my mom's funeral to me, all of us. So I'm sitting at my mom's funeral, hearing my words being read back to me. "I'm going to make you more proud. I'm going to spend more time with you, and I'm going to tell you I love you more often." And, April 30th, that was, that commitment was done, which, when you say things like that, you think it's gonna, you don't foresee an ending to that idea or that year. And anyway, so, with my story, basically, that year was really tough. And the next year I decided to, I kept thinking about the letter. So I decided to write my dad a letter. And I did a very similar thing in 2014, wrote my dad a letter, very different letter, because, he gave me perspective in my mom's passing. He really did. Well, the perspective was this, like, she was my mom, but he was her life. And honestly, the most traumatic moments of the last couple of weeks of my mom's life was when the doctors set my dad down in another room to let him know that they medically couldn't do anymore. Seeing him fall down, and obviously they needed to make sure somebody was there because people get the news and their bodies can literally shut. You know what I mean? Anything's possible. But but like I said, the letter allowed me to like just say how much he was my hero, because things can go many different ways when spouses die. People you've been with for 40 years, and he decided he didn't become a recluse. He didn't stay inside. He didn't die. He still steps out. He still loves. He still cares. And he's my I'm a single parent. I have a single parent now, and he's my dad, and I love him so much. And that's what that letter was. So it was very different from the year before, but doing that and sharing that experience again, encapsulating those memories, because gratitude is all in remembering. You got to be present. You got to be present so you can have the memory. It's like, that's what's so important about presence, because if we're not actually there, we can't even remember what to be grateful for. After doing that a second time, I just had this nugget of an idea. I was like, what if I could inspire people to have this moment? What if I could somehow be like, just be the mechanism to get somebody to have this experience? So initially all I did was I spent months putting a website together and talking to people and just getting people to initiate letters on their birthdays to people. And my first gratitude practice was actually in a Starbucks, because I would go there, work on the website, and talk to people and share my story about my mother and this letter and what it did.
That's beautiful. So how long have you had the podcast?
Well, the podcast is a little over a year old. I've interviewed over 100 people. Wow. And just been, it's really cool. I got to actually thank the retired CEO of Starbucks coming back around on the podcast. I was like, I just want to thank you, man. You're part of the atmosphere that created this space I got to have this experience in. But it's been a little over a year, and since then I've released 2 books on gratitude, and a third one coming out next month. And I'm getting to talk to amazing people like you. And I launched a nonprofit. And anyways, to close up your question, which I gave you a loaded answer. My book that's coming out next month is called The Mechanics of Gratitude. It's the 5 stages to a gratitude practice. And the reason I have that is because, honestly, it's because of all the people I talk with, like yourself. That's the amazing thing about these conversations, that they allow me to learn things, and I find more things to be grateful for. And that pinnacle experience, that catalyzing gratitude, it's when you set up a scenario where gratitude can exist, and you actually are setting places where you're collecting memories because So, for example, right now I'm talking to you, right? We're talking about gratitude. So we're literally creating memories around the idea of gratitude.
Yes.
And that's what catalyzing gratitude is. So if you just go out and you talk about gratitude, ask them what they're grateful for, you are kind to somebody, all those things set the table for someone to have a grateful memory, to be present and appreciate the moment. So, okay.
Beautiful. What are the 5 stages? Do you mind my asking?
No, I don't mind asking. I don't mind you asking for sure. The first stage is it's called reflexive gratitude. So pretty much most people walk around. At least I feel most people think of gratitude as just in a reflexive state, and that means somebody opens the door for you, you say thank you, and you move on. And it's reflexive in the sense you do not know what you're doing. It has no context other than it's a reflex. It's like the doctor hitting the knee. It's good manners, but do you want your gratitude practice? Do you want your sincerity to be manners driven?
Right.
You know what I mean? So the question, most people, I feel like people are taught manners, and that's where they think gratitude. That's where they think thanks comes in. It's, right. You've given me a present. Thank you. You opened the door. Thank you. It's like, but it's reflexive. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you're
not consciously thinking about it.
Yeah. So you go from reflexive to, intentional gratitude. So so for example, when you have a gratitude practice, so if somebody simplistically goes, okay, in the morning, I'm going to write 3 things I'm grateful for. That's intentional. Now we've gone out of the haze of reflexive, and we're actually intentionally doing something.
So that's step 1, intention.
Yeah. Well, there's 5. So we're taking step number 1 is it's a stage is reflexive is 1. You got to realize there's a reflexive, and then it goes to intentional. Yeah, it goes into intentional. So intentional is where all the practicing comes in. That could be like, I'm going to get up today and, I'm going to, so many people there's journaling, there's writing down what you're grateful for. You could put stickers on things just to remind yourself that this is something you appreciate. There's a whole bunch of people get caught. There's a whole bunch of ways to do that. Just being intentional, right? The practice is intentional. It's almost like if you were wanting to lose weight. So you're saying your healthy weight, something, your intentionality be like, I'm going to go to the gym. And then at the gym, you're going to do whatever you want to do. That's not, you know what I mean? And that's going to be what's best for you. It's not going to be, it's not my choice, but there's many different exercises to say.
Uh-huh.
So that's number 2. And then number 3 is called, it's called, I'm trying to get from 3 to 4. I got these mixed up the other day. Isn't that funny? It's my whole theory. So the next one is relational gratitude.
Relational.
Yes. Okay. So relational gratitude, relational gratitude basically, and I think I'm getting these 2 words mixed up, which is great. Now you're asking this, I'm screwing this up, but you're going to understand because I'm going to explain it to you.
Okay, good.
So basically it's really great to mention 3 things you're grateful for, but it's still a stagnant idea. When I say I'm grateful for, simplistically, if I go, I'm grateful for coffee, which I am.
Yes. I too am grateful for caffeine.
Yeah. So that's nice, but there's no emotion there.
No. Well, it depends on how much you need the caffeine.
Well, yeah, but if you're just saying I'm grateful for coffee, it's a statement. There's no emotionality behind it. Emotional. Sorry, that's it. It's emotional gratitude goes in relational. Emotional is let's take coffee and let's make it emotional. So, for example, why am I grateful for coffee? Okay, well, I'm grateful that I can get beans from anywhere in the world, that they're here. I'm grateful that I have a coffee maker that's sitting in the other room. I'm grateful that I have water that gets pumped into the house that's purified, so I'm not worried about that's healthy water. I'm grateful that it's hot. I'm grateful that it smells good. There's an aroma, right? And also, of course, like you said, I'm very grateful for the little kick of caffeine, the way it makes my body feel. But as soon as I start talking about the reasons, that's the emotionality of it. And that's where people, because that's the difference between a stagnant idea of I'm grateful for coffee and I'm grateful for coffee. Why, right?
Right.
If you go even further, you go with this,
deeper dive.
Yeah, you give a deeper dive because at the surface level, words are just words. But as soon as you start to emotionalize, there's like a little like coffee would be like the tip of the iceberg. And underneath that is all the reasons you are grateful for coffee.
Right. And that's putting your emotion on it.
That's emotion. Yeah. You're putting emotion into it. So as soon as you do that, you can feel it. And I'm sure you could tell when I talk about it, I get emotional because I'm like, there is so much. And there's so much with a lot. We could talk. I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole of gratitude on a lot of single things because there's so much.
I never thought so much about coffee until you just said so many things about it.
Oh, well, that's great. Water is just a great one to go down the rabbit hole too. But again, like each one of those things, like for instance, we just talked about a big smorgasbord, but water has so much. You could go deep dive about water, right? You could go the deep dive about electricity. You can go with my coffee. I like, heavy cream, right? So I have a refrigerator. So we could talk about refrigeration and the fact that, what I mean? Like, there's so much, like, I like to have, coconut oil in my coffee, right? Anyway, there's so many like things, like areas you could go into. So that's emotional gratitude. Let's make it emotional instead of it being a word. Let's make it an emotion because that's again, memories, right? Where all these things are memories. I'm remembering to have these things. I'm blessed to have, I'm so fortunate to have these things, regardless if they've been there all my life. It's not a given because it's not everyone gets it. It's not, Right. It's not a given. Yeah. So that's stage 3. Now the next one is relational gratitude. So this is where it becomes even more personal. So this is my favorite. This is actually one of my favorite steps. So with relational, you do the same idea, but you take a person. So for example, instead
of a refrigerator that gives you the electricity you need to make your coffee, you're thinking about people and what they do for you.
You think about people and you think about how did this person come into my life? What had to happen? You start thinking about these turns in the road, these people, these pivot points. So, I mean, for example, really quick, and I'm going to do it really fast. The only reason you and I, on my end, right? Because the cool thing is we both have stories. The only reason we have on my end is, like I said, I had to listen to that podcast, hear something. I had to write a letter. I had to have the experience with my mom. I had to start a website. I had to go on gratitude tours. I had to I had to interview 100 and something people. I had to then listen. Think about this. While I'm interviewing people, I email people all the time because I want to interview people about gratitude, right? So it's like there's an ongoing there's a smorgasbord. But then a couple weeks ago, I got to listen to the Adam Carolla show again. I got to hear, and I have to be present. Think about podcasts. We walk around, we listen to all the time. I got to be present enough to go, whoa, I got to be there to hear what Anne's saying, right? And then I had to go, well, hold on. She's got a podcast. Maybe I can contact her. Then I have to take action steps. Then Heather has to step in. You know what I mean? And then here we are. And but the thing is, anybody in your life that's close to you, if you're sitting in a space of gratitude, you can do that, and it's exciting and it's emotional because you realize that every moment, if you choose, is actually magical.
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
So
the goal is to have every moment be magical, for sure.
Right, and that's where that relational comes in. So if whatever you're doing in a given moment, like so much had to happen, things you wouldn't choose, you would choose. In past, you had to go down. Maybe you wouldn't again, but here you are. And if you're grateful for the moment, you know that you only got here from that road.
Right.
Which makes you go, it's okay. Yeah. And then, so that's 4. We're almost done. So number 5 is catalyzing gratitude. And that's
what?
Catalyzing gratitude.
Catalyzing?
Yep.
I don't know if I know that word, catalyzing.
It's where you are manifesting the situation you're basically assisting gratitude to exist. You're being the catalyst for gratitude to exist in the world. So this is where you can't do this step alone. Everything else you could literally sit by yourself and do inside your head.
Right.
But this is the only one you have to do with other people. And I learned this, and it changed my life, because when I launched that website and I read Kate's letter, which I didn't get to that part of the story, this beautiful letter that she wrote to her parents on her birthday, absolutely beautiful letter. My friend Kate Boston wrote a letter. It was the first piece of gratitude that I collected when I started my website 5 years ago. I read this letter that she submitted so I could put it on the website so she could share it with her parents. And I got done reading it, and I was crying. I was just crying, Anne. And I didn't. It was the strangest thing, because I didn't know why I was crying. There was an emotion in my body that was completely new. Don't get me wrong, I've cried, but I didn't understand this moment. So I went through a checklist. I'm like, what's going on in my body? Why am I crying? And I was like, well, I'm not crying because I know Kate. I know she's a beautiful person. That's not why I'm crying. The letter was really beautiful. It was funny. It was well written. All those things, right? It's like, that's not why I was crying. And I kept going. And at the end, this epiphany hit me. I realized that the only reason this letter of love exists, the only reason it exists, is because I asked her to write it.
Oh.
Right. And that was the magic. And that's catalyzing gratitude. That's the idea of catalyzing gratitude.
I call it ripple and tripling. When you do something good and then you're in the presence of somebody else, it just automatically goes to them, and then they get to go and give it to someone else.
Exactly. Yeah. But see, when you do, the cool thing about with like the letters and so everything I've been doing the last 5 years is catalyzing gratitude. If that's the books where that letter is, my mom's letter's in the book too, or the podcasts, everything I do is just setting them. I realized I just want to be the gratitude conductor, because I didn't know. I wasn't there when Kate joined the band. I wasn't there when she practiced her instrument. I wasn't any of those things. I just happened to be fortunate enough to get in front of her and go, just, you know what I mean? And that's that I'm talking about. You just create space for people to be in a grateful state.
Well, good on you, man.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but that's terrific. I mean, what better thing than to be the catalyst conductor? I think you win the title.
Okay, well, you the other day were being a catalyst for gratitude the way you were talking. So I know I've been talking, but
I'm happy to hear how you got here.
Oh, I appreciate you asking. I love sharing, and I get so excited when I get to talk about it. But it's because I normally don't. I know your time's valuable, and I want to be able to,
I'm happy to hear how you did. What were the names of your first two books?
Dear Gratitude and Anthology, and the second one, which was Dear Gratitude and Anthology. I got to share my story, and I also got to share 50 people's story. 50 people wrote letters in
that's
gratitude.
A lot. How'd you collect them?
I put a call out, and people just, it was the amazing thing is I spent 6 months. My mentor said, because we were talking about a book for years, and my mentor said, "Look, the book's still a good idea." And I was like, yeah. And he said, "How about this?" He's right. You write 500 words a day for 6 months and see what happens.
500 words a day for 6 months?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. Did you do that?
Yes, I did.
You wrote 500 words a day for 6 months?
Yeah, because he told me, he said, "Look," he said, "most of it's going to be crap, but there's going to be some good stuff. And you just need to get in the process. And who knows, maybe after 6 months, you're like, I don't like writing. I don't, maybe there's nothing there, but he's like, get in the process, see what happens." And that's where, and I know you as an artist, and it's like, as soon as you get in and you start, that's actually where the magic happens. It's like, as soon as you start, anything can come up, right in your process, so I wrote for 6 months, had big ideas. I had a big, epic idea, because I do have cool stories, and I have been a lot of places. I've been very fortunate. But then it was like, because I interviewed some of the people, these smaller books, it was like, okay, people don't want a big autobiography about Chris, because no one knows Chris. People don't want to marry Chris. I'm looking for people to date me. So we made it nice and small, but because I did all this writing, and in the process, I found my editor, right? That was in the process. She read all the stuff and came back and said, "How about we share parts of your story, but we also ask people if they want to write for the book, write their stories of gratitude." So that was her idea. See, that wasn't even my idea. We put the call out, and I got, there's 51 people that wrote just for the book. But if you take it, there's 50 stories, but on the year of my mom's passing, I had 18 people write letters to my mother. So all of their letters to my mother and my letter to my mother's and their Kate's letters in there. So the amazing thing about the book is I want to be catalyst for gratitude. The book literally did that. The book just sitting on the shelf did that because it had people write for it, had them think about gratitude.
So the stories in the book are specifically about parents, or are they all? Was it a general? They could write about anything that represented gratitude.
I gave them categories to write about, and then we had sections. So there's even a really great section of, if you want to go even more lighthearted, about pets. There's ones about people that have passed away. There's ones about parents. There's ones about mentors. The great thing, people may not connect with Chris's gratitude story, but the great thing about the book is it gives all the flavors of the rainbow, all the colors of the rainbow. You know what I mean? And it's easy because you can read 5 minutes a day, opposed to, it's not like no one has to sit down and read the whole thing, because it ended up being a pretty big book. You can imagine after we got all those stories, and there ended up being like 300 pages, which again wasn't my vision, but it's because it's not all Chris.
Right.
So I did that, and then the second book was called Dear 2020, Letters to a Year That Changed Everything. And that came, so the amazing thing is it's people's letters to the year, and it's incredibly beautiful what these people wrote, just giving them, I didn't say write a gratitude story. They just knew they were putting in for submitting to a website called gratitudespace.com. So it's really beautiful. Just perspective is one of the hugest keys to gratitude. And I know you know that because I remember hearing you talking. It's like it gives perspective. Like that's what it does. It gives perspective on a year that a lot of people had a lot of different emotions and feelings on.
Oh my God, for sure. What a good idea.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there's 41 people wrote for that. And, just
you're a
beautiful
gratitude
stuff.
collector.
I am. I've got a massive scrapbook. I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty sure I have the biggest digital scrapbook there is.
I bet you do. If you're the dude who wrote 500 words a day for 6 months. Now, who's this mentor? I have to cross him off my list. That is way too difficult a thing to do. Wow.
Well, no, I have mentor Thomas Kalopoulos. He's amazingly wonderful and beautiful man. No, he said he could just do this,
That's that is quite a challenge.
Yeah, it was, but I was ready for it. I'd put off the book for 5, I was ready for it. I couldn't have done it 5 years ago. You know what I mean? I didn't have the stories or the ability or the passion, but I did now. But, I want to pivot though, because I've been talking so much because there's so many things I wanted to, I did have a whole thing to ask you. And I know you with your time, so the other day, because I heard you sharing, I wanted to hear more. So to give people a little backstory, you mentioned, okay, there's so many great people you mentioned, and I just wanted to hear more about them. So for example, if we were going to back up, I would love to hear more about let's see here. I had, so you said that, your family went to a church, and then there's a couple that knew that you were homeless, and they asked you to come audition for a couple of shows, and then you got that, and you started supporting your family, right? Is that correct? You started acting and supporting your family?
Yeah, well, yes, that it's not the same family, but yes, that happened. Both of those things happened. One was a church family, and the other, they were both church families, but one of us took us in, and the other one had the dinner theater. But that's just details. Yes, those things happened. Yes.
Okay, so I was, you said the one thing about your brother's friend who was a school teacher and a secretary. They literally took you guys in and you lived with them for a year. Is that correct?
Yes. My brother told his best friend that we were homeless, and yes, I don't think they expected us to be living there for a year. I think they just thought it might be a few days, but they're an incredible, life-saving family for sure.
So, so it was as simple as your brother had a friend. So he happened to have this friend, and he was just talking with his friend. And then they came to you guys and were like, would you like to live with us? That's how open and wonderful. That's how that happened.
I'm not really exactly sure what went on behind closed doors. I was 12 at the time, and all of a sudden we were moving in with another family. But You know, I don't know how they were so generous. Talk about gratitude. I have no idea, but I'm extraordinarily grateful to that family. I don't know what would have happened to me if they didn't take me in. They're called the McElhennies.
The McElhennies?
The McElhennies took me in, yeah.
That's beautiful. And then, you know, another part of your story, and I know I'm like not allowing you to tell your story, but there's this people, and you mentioned, you know, that, you know, obviously you were singing, you know, you started in the choir at the church. That's what started maybe your performance career, right? That would be the beginning of you being a performer, correct?
Yes, if you called, well, I wasn't singing in the choir. I sang with my dad. My dad was a piano player and an organist for churches. I mean, that's kind of the only job he ever, you know, held down. But the kids were his little props, and we would, you know, get up and sing by him every Sunday.
Oh, you said churches. So would you guys do like a circuit of churches, or was it just one? Or
we just moved a lot, you know.
Okay.
You know, we just kind of ran away from everything. It's part of why confronting life and truth is what I do. We just kind of kept running until we couldn't run anymore. Until we ran into the door.
But you were, I remember saying when I was listening to the podcast the other day, you said that obviously it seemed like your singing went from there to helping support the, you know, doing the theater, supporting the family. And then you eventually, because you were singing, someone saw you and said they wanted you to apply to be on a soap opera, right? Am I kind of putting this together? Well, I feel like I'm butchering your story. I'm sorry.
I started in dinner theater when I was 12, and then in high school, yes, I was seen in a play. So you're correct in the parts of your story. They're just in different parts of the country.
So someone saw you, and then you mentioned John Whitesell. Was that right?
John Whitesell, the executive producer. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you went to New York, and he saw you, and you at the time, and he wanted to hire you, right? While you were still in high school.
Yes, he did hire me. I left the day after I graduated high school to go and work on Another World, which was the TV show he was executive producing at the time. It was soap opera.
But when you were talking the other day, I thought you said initially he wanted you, but you couldn't go earlier because
because it meant moving my family. So the possibility was brought to me when I was in 10th grade, and then I don't know, they kept me in the braid. Sometimes it's hard to shake me. You know what I'm saying, Chris?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Whitesell couldn't shake me.
So he waited a couple of years later, and then did he just call you, or how did that happen? What was the mechanism that got, you know, because like you said, you didn't go then, but you ended up there because he liked you, because he saw you.
We lived in this kind of weird, crappy residential hotel in Chicago, and the reason that we moved there is because we couldn't afford a phone. So the residential hotel had one of those, you know, it's kind of old fashioned where you go into a hotel and they can call up to you.
Oh, wow.
And that was our phone. So John knew where I was. He knew that I was still living there, and he called up from the front desk and I answered the phone. It was really that simple.
Wow. So then you moved to New York and you start working on the show. And what were some of the, I mean, obviously that's a huge change, but what were some of the other, can you share some other grateful moments? I mean, that sounds pretty freaking amazing, but some other people maybe you met during that time, or just gifts in that situation?
Well, I mean, the whole thing of getting a job was really a gift. I don't think, I mean, my family had never seen $600 a week, which is what I was making. And every single person on that show became my family, really. I mean, the Anna and Kale, who put my mom and dad on the show, embraced me, saw that I was kind of a broken kid and didn't really know much about much, which I really didn't. And they kind of just nurtured me. That was a really special part of doing the soap opera, that I finally kind of felt comfortable in my life. Like they grew me to be comfortable with me. I did not have a very comfortable life with my family, and certainly not living with my mom in a one bedroom with my sister. It was always very, very complicated in my family situation. So getting to be able to go and be creative and learn how to act and be surrounded by people who were just living in their lives, it was outside of a kind of chaotic drama, which is what I was in my whole life, and became, you know, my own drama. But it, you know, it changed my life. I always say, anybody who could have started on a soap opera. I had incredible training. I did over 500, episodes of television. Like when I think about that, it's like, what? How could I have done that? But it was my training ground. It was a very special time for me. It changed my life.
That's so beautiful. I loved the other day. I just wanted to hear those little things. That's what's so, because when you mentioned John and going there, I just knew there was like so much. There had to be so much amazing, life-changing people, and just like I said, I love how you said he couldn't get you out of his, he remembered you so much that he came back because he wanted you, and it just changed your life again. Like you showing up, being who you are, him seeing you just completely. It's almost like the road completely diverted, right? Like it's just when those are those magical moments we're talking about, right? It's like those little, you never know. I mean, somebody sees you, when you're out there as being you, somebody sees you, next thing you know, your whole life's changed.
Yes, incredible. We have to count on the things that come in if we're paying attention, because you talked about it in the beginning when we started speaking. You have to pay attention to that moment when things are in front of you, and if you are aware of it, and you could say yes, those are things that we all have to listen to. We all have to see when doors are being opened. Right.
Just look for opportunities and do your damnedest to say yes when you can.
Yes is a good word.
Yes is. I asked Heather if you'd bring and you'd possibly read a gratitude quote. Is that? Did she said that you were going to be able to collect something, or?
Oh, well, we said, one of them, I'll quote myself. How about that?
That's fine. Sure.
So I always say the mistake is in the messenger. The mistake is the messenger. So we often think that, something happens and we don't like it. We don't want it to go our way. Like, that doesn't do. We have plans to do this. And then all of a sudden the plane, was canceled. Your flight is canceled. Whatever it is that goes in front of you that feels like a roadblock. And it seems to me from all my years of living that when you look at the messenger with a perspective that allows you to say, hey, wait a minute, let me just take a moment here and see that there's a gift here rather than something that's really putting me into a bad mood. Same thing that you were talking about in the beginning. I think looking at things that we think are uncomfortable or not going the way that we want gives us an opportunity to step back and go, hey, wait a minute, what can I learn from this? And without a doubt, it's going to be something. Most likely it's going to be something. But also the fun thing about perspective is that the fact of the matter is something has already happened. So our perspective allows us to decide how we're going to deal with that. Right? Just like you said, the guys on the beach. Like we can go, oh, well, this guy's having a great day on the beach. The other guy's having a crappy day on the beach. Why? It's their choice, certainly. But that goes back to being able to make a choice about, hey, I'm getting up in this morning. Do I like that I'm getting up? Do I like what I'm getting up for? Have I taken care of myself to be able to be in an emotional state where I can enjoy myself? We have a lot of responsibility as human beings on this planet. And our biggest one is to take responsibility for our choices, where we are, what we're doing, and how we interact with the world.
That's beautiful.
You're doing a great thing because you're saying, hey, listen, look, we've got all this opportunity in front of us. Why don't we look with gratitude at what's presented and then give that to others? And that's a very inspirational message.
Oh, well, thanks. I just, studying it so much, it's just like, this is the thing too. It's like all day long, we're going around labeling things, right? It's just the human nature to label everything. Yeah. And I was taught years ago, it's like, if we could just choose two labels, either it's a teaching moment or it's a gift. Everything has happens either a teaching moment or a gift, because
those are our only two options.
Yeah. if you're going to label things. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, because if it's a teaching moment, you can handle it differently opposed to saying, this is a bad thing happened to me. I'm being, something, I've been wronged. I've been hurt. Like, what if you're like, what is this moment teaching me? Being constructive opposed to critical about things happening that you don't have any control over. Right. It allows your mind to start, because that reminds your mind to go, where's the gift in this?
Yes. How am I going to receive this situation?
Right. Which, that's the amazing thing about gratitude. It's like the more you practice it, the quicker you are to find those little moments, to find, to start focusing on the gift opposed to whatever is troubling about it. Because we all know focusing on the hurt doesn't change the hurt. Focusing on the words that were said doesn't change anything. It just keeps us in the same space.
Yeah. Well, telling your story helps you get it out so that you can move on from it too. Bless it and then let it go. But if we keep it inside, that's not good either.
Right.
Being able
Right.
to address what's in front of you truthfully, I think is a good step.
So let me your podcast. I wanted to hear how you met your podcast host, Heather. How did you guys become friends? What's the story?
We met
Where's the grateful
15 years
moments?
ago at a tennis club. I wanted my children to be able to have something that I hadn't had. So I and sometimes that's a good decision, and then sometimes you're like, wow. But sometimes there are other, but having them play tennis was a good one, and I wanted to. I said to my 7-year-old, who's now 19.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable Homer. If you start, I'll start. I always like to be a person who represents being able to do something that you're not good at, especially to kids, because it's so hard to try something new and be so bad at it. So I was going to try something new and be really bad at it. And Heather was there that day and knew that I was shaking in my boots because all the tennis ladies were there hitting their balls and they were all so good. And I didn't know what I was doing. And she saved my butt and let me relax and just look at the moment, be present in the moment, be grateful for it. And from that moment on, we became friends, and understanding our and as we grew our friendship and understood what we were both about, really started realizing our philosophies were the same, and that living in loving kindness is really a part of what our purpose is in this world, and started sculpting ideas and thoughts about how we could give more and do that together, and thereby better together than another.
Well, that's beautiful. So what, you guys have been podcasting for a little while now, and I know you have a team of people that you're bringing back in.
Well, we have Sandra Bernhardt on this week. So if anybody, we drop a new one every Thursday, and we had a really fun, Sandra Bernhardt is a fun guest, and we're going to have Adam Carolla on next week. So you're going to have to.
Oh, well, okay.
Hey, listen, Chris, it was so wonderful to be here. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the time today, and thank you so much. And I appreciate you sharing and what you're doing, and I really love it. And I thank you. And I thank Heather again for making this all happen.
I will. I'll give her a big fat kiss for you.
Okay, well, I'm Chris with Anne. Just around everybody to stay grateful, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
Chris.
Thank you. Bye.